Hello, and welcome to an episode of CTRM Radio, an ad hoc podcast from Commodity Technology Advisory, hosted on ctrmcenter.com. Traceability. That's being able to track a product back through its supply chain to the point of origin. It's been something that we at Comtech have written about for several years now, driven by various regulations and by issues like brand protection, ensuring that certain labels applied to products are accurate, such as green power, for example. Green power attracts a premium, and so customers want to be certain that it truly is green power. However, traceability now seems set to take a step up in terms of priority, as the EU has unveiled the EUDR regulation in 2023, obligating companies to trace their supply chains and ensure that the products they sell do not contribute to deforestation. It applies to all companies that place, make available on the EU market, or export products from the EU market containing, being fed with, or made using the following commodities: cattle, including beef and leather, cocoa, coffee, oil palm, including palm oil, rubber, soy, wood, including printed papers, books, furniture and boards, and some derived products such as chocolate and selected palm oil-based derivatives. Now, this comes into effect December 30th of this year for large and medium-sized companies, and a little later for smaller companies. It is expected to have real teeth, and most companies should be well on their way to planning for this as we speak. So will this be the tipping point for ensuring CTRM and commodity management solutions really can handle traceability? Will this drive a flood of companies seeking solutions to the market? We asked two vendors who are actively targeting this issue and whose solutions incorporate traceability to find out more. First, let's talk with Saurabh Goyal, founder and CEO of Phlo Systems. Saurabh, thank you for joining us on CTRM Radio this morning. And basically, I wanted to ask you first, what is driving the need for traceability in commodity management and CTRM solutions?
Thanks for having me on your show, Gary. And in terms of what's driving traceability among commodity traders, so I can reply from the perspective of the kind of traders we serve, which is usually small and medium-sized traders. And what we can clearly see is that until now, or as of today, there are two forces. One is these traders supply to larger commodity traders who then supply to corporate players. And the corporate players have always been asking for sustainability and traceability in the supply chains. So yes, depending on whom they are supplying to, there would be requirement from the customer side or the buyer side to give clear traceability and sustainability credentials on the produce they are supplying. But that was only if the customer was asking. If the customer was not asking, then the traders we work with were not very keen on either sustainability or traceability, because it's an additional cost to them and the margins are already very thin in this market. For the last year or so, we have seen for suppliers who supply into the EU markets quite concerned about the new EUDR regulation, and which will make it mandatory, irrespective of whether your customer is asking for it or not. You still have to be making sure that all your imports into Europe are complying with the law. So yes, that has picked up the interest among the smaller and medium-sized traders in understanding what the law means and what kind of changes they will have to do in their supply chain, as well as in the systems they are using in order to comply with the law. So yeah, so I would say these are the two primary drivers, in my opinion.
And does the law have teeth in the form of penalties, fines, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not a specialist on the law, but what I understand is that both the suppliers as well as the buyers, which is the exporters from, say,
Mhm.
countries like Western Africa uh, and Latin America, as well as importers in Europe, as well as uh, distributors and retailers who are using those products in their supply chain, are regulated by the law, and they have to ensure that none of those produce are coming from uh, zones which are affected by deforestation. The implementation of the law would be done by the local authorities. In most of the cases, the local authorities would be the customs
Yeah,
agencies in that country, and they would be given the necessary powers to inspect, check, and implement fines. The fines can go up to, I've heard, 5% of your global revenue, or something on those
wow.
lines. Yeah. Plus, the authorities will have the power to ban you from further supplying into the European market. So the laws are quite strict.
So
How actually they will be
pretty serious.
implemented is yet to be seen. Yeah.
Yeah. And what is it in terms of current CTRM technology, the sort of legacy stuff that's out there? How are they able to implement traceability? I mean, do they have difficulties in implementing traceability?
So yes and no. I mean, uh, if you're talking about the first mile, which is the traceability from farmers to uh, local buying agents,
Yeah,
and then from the local buying agents to the local trader who accumulates all these supplies. There are a number of apps now available which would claim to do that job. So, if I'm a buyer in West Africa, then usually I would be the primary buyer of that app. So I will use that app, give that app to my local buying agents, and I will ask them to ensure that every time they buy goods from the farmers, they should record the evidence of that on that app. And
yeah,
that app is also uh, capable of taking the geo coordinates of the farms and capture some of the basic farmer details, etc., etc. So yes, that the systems are there, the tools are there, but the biggest problem is the training, because someone has to take the job of training all the local buying agents and making sure that they are following all the processes of capturing the data in the right format, etc., etc. And the biggest hurdle we have seen or heard from the traders we work with is that the training is expensive. The people on the ground may not want to follow the process. And also the other thing is that each company may have a different app. Then, and if the local buying agent is not exclusive to the buyer,
right.
they may end up using 3 or 4 apps at a time, which again is slightly impractical and will cause issues. So yes, the technology is there, but how exactly it will be implemented, people will be trained for the first mile is not yet there. Then there is traceability within uh, the trader's operation itself. So the trader has collected a lot from a buying agent. That lot has been taken from 50 different farmers, and you have that information.
Yeah,
What happens within your supply chain? I mean, you may merge those lots, you may break those lots, you may use those lots to process some intermediate goods. So how do you follow that journey of the lot within your own operations and make sure that every time a lot is broken, merged, destroyed, used in a process, that traceability information continues in your own supply chain? So that we don't see too many systems out there which have thought about that traceability and used it in their systems. Unless you have a very proper ERP system which follows everything from procurement till the goods are shipped out.
right.
And then you have the subsequent supply chain where goods have been shipped out from the trader's location, but it may go to another trader, an intermediate trader, and then that intermediate trader may do something else with it, and then they may sell it to the final buyer. So again, that has implications on how the different systems and different supply chains under ownership of different people will speak with each other. So yes, there are challenges. I mean, technology is not the problem. The problem is how do people coordinate and interoperability
Yeah.
between the systems. Yeah.
And what about your own solution? How does that work with traceability? Because I know you feel like it's a differentiator for you.
Yeah, so we are also subjected to the same challenges as I just mentioned. I think the benefit we have compared to other CTRM providers is that we are not just a CTRM system. We have always developed Phlo, which is our end-to-end uh, supply chain management system, we call it. And it helps both people at the origination side as well as the destination side. So yes, we have both origination modules as well as sales and marketing modules, as well as ERP module, which is basically inventory management. And if you are doing primary processing on those goods, then all that is managed through our system. So yes, at least we don't have the issue of uh, tracing the information across multiple systems, as long as the organization is using us for all their operations.
Right.
So yes, within an organization, yes, we will completely be able to satisfy the full traceability from the point that they have taken received goods from a farmer or a cooperative till the point where they have dispatched these goods out. Now, what happens after that? What we are doing is that we are publishing an API. So we are saying that we have an API, and if you have shipped the goods to, say, another large trader or say a manufacturer, and they want to pull the traceability information out of our system using just your invoice number or shipment tracking number, we will provide them the necessary API to pull that information out of our system. And then they can use that information, which will be presented in a structured manner in their own systems to provide further traceability information to supply chain partners down the road. So yes, we are working on that. Also, what we are doing is that we are thinking both from the perspective of the exporter who is exporting goods from, say, origin countries, as well as importer. So the importer has the additional duty not just to receive data saying that the shipment is coming from these 500 farmers from these geolocations and here are the geo coordinates. The importer also has the responsibility to check whether any of these geo coordinates have been subjected to deforestation.
Mm-hmm.
So we have now started a project where uh, the importer can enter those coordinates in a online system, and we would be able to pull satellite images, if available, for those locations,
Right.
and determine whether deforestation was done there or not using some AI techniques. So we are also building that kind of functionality within our system.
Very good.
For us, sustainability is a big driver for uh, giving state-of-the-art kind of a solution to customers.
Yeah.
EUDR is a big change coming in that direction. It would be implemented by the end of this year. There were a number of initiatives by different lobbyist groups to delay the implementation. But so far, what I'm hearing is that the European Union is quite strict and they would not further delay. So we believe that this would be in place by end of this year, and from early next year, we'll start seeing some actual results of it, and maybe some companies would be inspected and even fined to set up an example. So yeah, so I mean, we would say that we are very actively working in that direction, and we need some more help in terms of making sure that what we are developing is truly useful for the traders.
Yeah.
So if there are traders out there who would like to see a demo of what we are doing and give us some inputs on how it can be made better for them, we would more than welcome that kind of advice.
Very good. Actually, I recall there being some US import similar sort of standard around, I think it was child labor or something.
Yeah.
There ought to be some driving traceability from that perspective as well, for some products certainly. So, and I know that one comes with serious fines and implications as well.
Yeah, so that has been there for quite some time. The only problem with that law is that the implementation is not very strict till date. I don't think there has been anyone who has been fined.
Right.
Uh, so I think the seriousness by the US government in implementing that law is not there, which is definitely not the case with EU authorities.
Right.
They're very
Got teeth,
serious
real
about it.
teeth. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Right.
Okay, Saurabh, thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, good luck with everything.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, thanks to Saurabh. Now we will turn our attention to Richard Williamson, founder and CEO of Gen 10. So, Richard, thank you for joining us on CTRM Radio. I know that we've had several conversations over the past several years about traceability and how Generation 10 has looked at traceability and has solutions in that area. But let's just start out by what is it that's driving the need for traceability?
Obviously, the main one is the European regulations, the EUDR, where you're needing to prove that no trees were harmed in the processing and shipping of this commodity. And they got some pretty stiff deadlines for January 1 next year. And the onus of proof is really quite stringent, really detailed. So I think everybody's rushing around trying to find, how do I provide the data to prove that that bag of coffee has come from this place and that no trees were harmed, etc., etc. I think today that's the main driver. Now, it's only for a handful of commodities like soy, palm oil, coffee. I think natural rubber was included in that at the last minute. But I think the plan is that other commodities will start being added to the list. They wanted to start somewhere. And I mean, there's the regulations, but there's also, you know, from the consumer end, you know, there is an impression that the consumer, at least in Europe, I think is the center of all of this, that they need to prove that they're being responsible custodians of the planet. And when I buy my T-shirt, that I'm safe, that it's been produced responsibly, right? They're the two main drivers.
And isn't there something from a North American perspective with regard to customs that's also driving traceability?
Yeah, but I guess it doesn't go all the way back to the farm or all the way back to the mine. They need to know where it's coming from, but that's more like FOB to SIF sort of stuff, is my understanding, at least. Yeah. To prove which country it came from. I guess you know, there's also, if you do have some countries that are under certain types of, embargoes. Yeah. You know, that they're not shipping it from one country to another and then to the market, having occluded a bit of the traceability, right? So that's the other bit on the geopolitical side, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And when it comes to implementing traceability in a commodity management or a CTRM solution, what does it involve? What does it actually mean?
It's ultimately to do with strong inventory management, right? Yeah. First of all, having the architecture to not just have a block of a contract, that some commodities are managed in lots, so it's tracing those lots, and when they get split to go to different customers, etc., being able to keep that chain of custody and transaction all nicely in order. And then you got some where it's a lot, but it has a bunch of units in it, whether it's copper coils, or whether it's steel rods, or whether it's bales of cotton. So being able to get down to the individual units that can then be digitally traced all the way through, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we're doing some great work here in Brazil on that particular topic, which I guess we'll talk about in due course. So that's the data. Now, then the problem is, well, how do you get the data in? You know, there's a big burden of administrative work. There's lots of numbers involved, and not just the volume of work that somebody would have to do manually, but you know, the errors and omissions that happen in those sorts of scenarios as well. You then have once they've put it into their system, you then got these portals that are managing the certification of changing custody or whatever. Some have better APIs than others for integrating your systems. Now, then you've got all the CTRMs up to scratch for interfacing with those platforms. But without those APIs, people are then also going on the website and retyping that information in order to get the certificate that it's come under this rainforest project or this BCI project, whatever it is. So that they are the challenges. And I guess what we've been doing at Gen 10 is trying to look at those items, the details. What is the data available? How can we reuse that data without having to hire an army of people to feed the system with this granular data? So that's ultimately, that's the basics. So then what do? You're receiving data in all sorts of formats, in PDFs, in spreadsheets, sometimes fax copies, and you've got this other website where you go and track, okay, this farm that I just bought some stuff from has it's good that there are websites that can show you, okay, there were trees here in 2019 and in 2021 there weren't any trees, so that's a red flag there. But again, it's about integrating that data rather than having these different silos of expertise, all the way through to getting it on the vessel where it's going to, going into Rotterdam or something. And they need to say, okay, well, these goods that are in this container, where have they come from, on a bale by bale or a bag by bag level? So it's really quite intense, pressures on data systems. And we've had a very serious look at all of this. And, let's use machine learning, seeing as how AI is being overused. So we've developed some machine learning routines that will extract, lift data from these various formats, clean it, recognize it as the kind of data that it is, and the system learns when it sees that kind of document again what to do with it. So that gets the information in. When you get the packing list, being able to read the packing lists in as well, so that it then finds that this ID number with that ID number brings it all together. Now, again, there is still the problem of, you've got the operators who are managing the contract execution, the logistics of everything. You then have this sustainability team who are tasked with the traceability initiatives, the scope 3 reporting, or maybe there's a different scope 3 reporting, emissions tracking team, all of these different silos. And so what we thought the ultimate solution is, if we provide something for the operators to do their job easier, better, is there other information available at that touch point that we can bring in so that the traceability and the scope 3 reporting is done almost as a side effect of executing these contracts? And that's what we've been doing here in Brazil. Right. Maybe we.
Yeah, tell me more about that. Yeah, what's going on in Brazil?
Yeah, so so we're doing it in the cotton business at the moment, where we've every bale of cotton has maybe 12 or 15 different data points of quality, and they need to know the quality of these bales in order to say whether they're going to buy them or not, or whether they're going to offer a premium or a discount, these kinds of things. But so that whole process very inefficient. So we've streamlined that completely to, you can do it in seconds as opposed to several hours to get that approval. Now, that same process, when we're bringing that data in, we're getting information about the farm. We're using a connection to another platform that is doing all of the satellite imagery and artificial intelligence on all of that kind of stuff to say whether or not you've got a green light or a red flag there. So we're not having to rebuild that functionality, we're leveraging that. So we get that, we solve the problem for the operator, we also know exactly where that bale's come from. So that's perfect. We have our maps, we have our our visualizations to help consolidate and streamline and simplify all of that data. They get the packing list, upload the packing list. We get to see, yes, this bale went in that container and is going to this customer. We're using another web service that's providing container and vessel tracking through, transshipment ports, etc., because that's another problem where they change ship. It's not just vessel tracking. So that's helping the operator, the operator's life, because without that, the operator has to go on to whichever shipping line website, find the vessel, see the new ETA, and then come back into the CTRM and update the system. By having this interface, that operator is now managing the process. They're not having to check in multiple places. It's all happening behind the scenes. The system is removing the friction, I would call it, of getting that information, right? Now, that helps the operator, but we also know what vessel it was, how old it was, other stuff about the type of fuel, etc., other stuff that's available on those web services, where we're then able to calculate the carbon footprint of that journey. So it's just by addressing an operational efficiency using technology, it's automatically solved your traceability issue. It's automatically solved your scope 3 issues. And I think it's wonderful. We call it silver thread, where we're trying to connect the physical commodity to the ether of the data there in the cloud. And I think whilst in the dream world where everything is standardized and you've got industry standards, etc., it would make everything a lot easier for everybody. But we all know that could be 5, 10, 20 years or never happen. Like it hasn't happened in the last 25 years of me trying to fly the flag, we need better standardization or whatever. But so it's about standardizing. The flexibility is what we've done. So whilst we're waiting for those guys to organize themselves, if I can say that, it's like, well, what data do we have? How do we standardize it? How do we clean it in the system? And then how do we use it? And in so doing, when I'm now selling to you, my customer, you also have this traceability burden and need to prove your scope 3 emissions, So if I can clean it and provide it, excuse me, in a machine readable format where you don't have to create some artificial intelligence to scrape data from different formats, you have something that really does start to help the industry and standardize the industry in a sort of a clandestine fashion, without having to go through, the what's the right word? The normal ways of going about standardizing an industry.
Collaborative.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
It's really exciting. It's really exciting.
Yeah, but in summary, essentially, what you're saying is that it's a case of architecture and integration through APIs. And again, it's another case of Generation 10's approach to sort of innovating along the supply chain to reduce the manual complexity, right?
It is, and we take time to understand these different stakeholders' needs. So rather than just solve this one person's problem and get quality in there, for example, we're thinking, well, who else could make use of this information, and how do we structure it there so we can then share it down the line, right?
Great stuff. Okay, well, thanks, Richard. Appreciate it. Well, my thanks to Richard and Saurabh for the informative interviews. I think we've learned something about traceability, where it's going, what's happening, and we can look forward to solutions emerging on the marketplace and also companies shopping for those very same solutions. This has been an episode of CTRM Radio, an ad hoc podcast from Commodity Technology Advisory, LLC, hosted on ctrmcenter.com, your place for everything CTRM. My name's Gary Vasey. I'd like to thank you for watching today. I'd like to thank Saurabh and Richard for participating. And I'd like to ask, if you found this interesting, that you might follow our YouTube channel and subscribe, like, and share. Thank you very much. Goodbye.